Each one of us would have to look inside our hearts and soul and determine what is it that's worth our time. Pick your own battle here means you put in the effort to reap the most benefits. Because not every battle is worth our attention. We're limited with time, we're limited with resources. We don't live forever, so we cannot fight every battle. How we want to utilize our time, our resources. We have to plan smartly. We have to defeat every desire we have. You may end up worse than before you study Buddhism. We have to work and fight smartly. To illustrate this, I have a story to tell you. The most famous battle in the European ancient history. Coast of mainland Greece, August 480 BC. A Greek army of 7,000 led by King Leonidas with 300 Spartans fought against a 250,000 strong invasion force led by Xerxes, the Persian king. At stake, the future of Greek civilization. Persia, on the other hand, Xerxes, the king of Persia, controlled 2/3 of the world. And Greece lived under the shadow of the mighty Persian Empire. 2/3 of the world then is stretched from today's Turkey to Israel to Iran to northern India. But that was still not enough for Xerxes. He wanted to expand his empire into Europe, and Greece was the gateway to get there. To get to Greece, Xerxes would have to pass the Thermopylae up here, which is a small path. But 10 years ago, Xerxes' father, Darius, had been defeated by Greece. And so he was determined not to suffer the same fate. So he gathered a huge army from all corners of his empire. 250,000 men set out to conquer Greece. Never tried in ancient warfare. He knew that to get to Greece, he would have to get to Athens. He would have to conquer Athens. And to get to Athens, he would have to get to Thermopylae. Thermopylae is a small pass surrounded by hills and mountains. So an army of any size would have to come down to that narrow path. Thermopylae means hot plate, and known for its hot springs. Sparta was a free country of about 90,000 free citizens. This is a very close society. They were well educated and well trained for battle. They were equipped with bronze armor and heavy shields and a sword for close-up battle. Xerxes' army, on the other hand, were soldiers. Their soldiers were lightly armed because they were trained for quick maneuvering, quick warfare in open plain. King Leonidas at that point was about 50 years old, so he was personally very brave and with determined resolution. He took his 300 Spartans, and later on some Greek armies joined them. Xerxes decided to delay the invasion 4 days to allow time for the Greeks to disperse. By the end of the 4th day, nobody moved, and so he was finally resolved to conquer Greece. On the first day, the first thing that he did was he gathered 5,000 archers and rained down fire barrage of arrows down onto the Greeks. But their bronze shield, their bronze armors, and their heavy shields deflected the arrow missiles, leaving no permanent damage. And when the Greek army got tired, they would pull back, and the 300 Spartans would advance and crush the Persian troops. On the second day, Xerxes, thinking that his army, being so few, were disabled by the wounds and could no longer resist. So he sent in his infantry, the foot soldiers, to attack the Greeks. But the lightly armed Persian soldiers were no match for the heavily armed Spartans, so they were crushed too. Xerxes finally stopped the assault and went back to his camp, completely perplexed. He couldn't understand why his invasion scheme wasn't working. He needed a miracle. So Xerxes looked for other ways to invade Greece. There was a Greek trader wanting to get rich fast, negotiated with Xerxes, showing him the back way to attack the Spartans. On the third day, Xerxes sent his Persian soldiers the back way. When the Greeks, watching the path above the path of the Thermopylae, realized the huge group of armies coming towards them, they knew that that would be outflanked. So they quickly went to inform King Leonidas about it. Leonidas realized that this was going to be his last battle. So at dawn, he called a council of war. Everybody left except for the 300 Spartans who would stay back to fight to the end. So when battle commenced, King Leonidas fell in battle. At that point, Xerxes' army had a huge loss of 10,000 men. But 10,000 was just a small drop in the bucket of the 250,000 soldiers. Xerxes decided to stop the assault, pull his army back to finish off the Spartans from a safe distance with arrows. Xerxes, the king of Persia, ordered thousands of arrows raining down on the Spartans until nobody left standing. And finally, then he killed off everybody. 10,000 casualties was really a small drop in the bucket, but it was a big blow to Xerxes' army's morale. Because he was astonished that men would fight to the death for something that they believe in, for their freedom. Xerxes raced on to conquer Greece, to conquer Athens. But then most of his citizens and army had already fled. Later that year, 480 BC, the Greeks took their ships and defeated Xerxes at the Great Sea Battle of Salamis. So Xerxes' grand scheme to conquer Europe was in ruins. Had the 300 Spartans that day not stood up and fought heroically, the whole Greek resistance would have come to a tumble. Many civilizations left behind great, magnificent monuments, but the Spartans left nothing behind. All they left behind was that single act of heroism that day that is still very much living today. So what's in point here is that people was fighting for what they believed in. And what they taught us was that they smartly utilized what they had. They utilized their training, they utilized their equipment, they utilized the terrain to fence off invasion. Without that heroic act that day, Greece would have been conquered by Xerxes. Because of that, it generated a lot of courage among the Greeks to overcome the mighty Persian Empire. The moral of the story here is that the Spartans trained their whole lives for battle. Right? Our success in this lifetime is determined how we discipline ourselves every day. It's not a single battle, but how we train ourselves every day. How we smartly filter out what's worth focusing on and what's not. Which desires will be a hindrance to us. Which desires we can overcome easily. We don't have to fight every desire. Just like the Spartans, all they had to do was just to fence off the Persians from coming in. They had no reason to attack them. They could defeat them. Like 300 Spartans defeating 10,000 the Persian army, and later on allow the Greeks to defeat the Persian invasion. How we want to utilize our time, our resources. We have to plan smartly. We don't have to defeat every desire we have, but only the ones that will pull us back. We know for sure that we cannot live without those things. Those are the things, whatever they may be, will be the things that will pull us back. We can never escape the cycle of life and death. So we have to really reflect and see deep in our heart, what is it that creates an attraction that we cannot escape? At the last moment of your life, what is it that can pull you back? We have to think about it, very self-reflect, and determine what is it that we cannot overcome. And put in the energy to overcome those things, right? The second thing is their act of heroism energized the Greek resistances against the Persian invasion. Knowing that that we have tried our best, knowing that we have done nothing wrong is a boost of encouragement and a boost of courage. Another thing is fighting for the country and the freedom, fighting for what they believed in. We have to learn Buddhism and understand that the goal here is to escape the cycle of life and death. And in Buddhism, it's vast. We should choose Pure Land Buddhism because it's a great vehicle. We are taking advantage of our, like the Spartans, advantage of their training, their equipment, and their terrain. We have to take advantage of what we have limited in resources and time. We don't have time to achieve deep meditation. We're so busy with work, right? We have things to do, obligations to fulfill. But Pure Land Buddhism says, contain your desires, contain your negative karmas, evil karma, and you should be okay. Things that we should avoid in the precept, right? No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxication. Those things will destroy our ability to control ourselves. Because those offenses are so great that they will destroy us. If we violate those things, no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, and no lying, those 4 things will make us feel horrible about ourselves. Make us feel guilty when we have committed those offenses. And that guilty feeling will eat us inside out. And that guilty feeling will pull us back. So we have to know what we should avoid, choose our own battles, pick the things that you can, giving yourself time to work the problems out, right? No, we don't need to resolve our karma, our negative karma. To recognize and focus only containing the few active karma, things that make us impulsive, things that have a lot of momentum behind them, that make us impulsive to go out and do things without thinking. You have the urge to go and buy something or to do something, not smart. Watch out for those things, because those things at the last moment of our lives, those things will become very powerful. Those urges that we cannot control will become very powerful. By defending Thermopylae, the Greeks were making the best possible use of their forces, leaving as much of the dormant karma alone untouched. Meaning that don't stir up the past. If you're in a meeting or you're in an encountering with other people and you feel agitated, don't allow yourself to be angry. Because when you feel angry, you're stirring the past karma. It will motivate you to become even more angry. And when you do that, you're stirring up dormant karma. You're waking them up. You're going to create even more karma to deal with. You follow me? And same thing when you feel very happy because you have something, control your happiness. Because if you are susceptible to being happy, then you are just as susceptible to being depressed. Right? It's something that can easily stir you up. Positively, favorably, the negative is just as true. One day you're very happy on top of the world. Watch yourself. The next day you just like feel at the bottom of the pit. And you don't understand why. Sometimes there are no reasons why we feel so depressed, but yet something in our mind, some small little thing, we miss a result or something very minor, but yet it makes us feel horrible about ourselves. Bottom of the pit, you follow me? I'm sure you experienced that, right? Do not allow yourself to feel depressed. And also do not allow yourself to be so crazily happy. Because you're susceptible to this side of the spectrum, you will be just as susceptible to the other extreme. So stay in the middle. Do not allow dormant past karma to awake. So leave them in touch. Don't stir up the past. Don't get angry so easily. Recognizing that when we're about to get angry, we're about to wake up this giant, this negative, evil karma giant that's going to be a hindrance to us. The last point is they had no requirement to seek a decisive battle, and could thus remain on the defensive. All you have to do is just block that from coming. So same thing, we don't have to eliminate all desires. We just have to contain ourselves, quarantine our desires. Don't have to feel guilty and fight that desire, but just contain it. When you refrain yourself from acting impulsively, you're reducing its power. You're not feeding it. Because that is an illusion. That urge is an illusion. It's motivated, energized by our past karma. Right? When we don't allow ourselves to act impulsively, we are reducing its energy. The next time it comes back, you will feel its power reduced. And every time you do that, little by little, time is our good friend. Make good use of it. You will feel that its power over you has been reduced. It's not practical and it's not possible for us to eliminate all desires, but we should pick the few, the very few, the 4 or 5 of that are big hindrances, major hindrances to our success.